If you've just been diagnosed with type 1 diabetes or know somebody who has, these are 10 things that I wish I knew before diagnosis. Hey guys, my name is Samantha Hildebrandt. I was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes back in February of 2021, and I was 29 years at the age of diagnosis. When I was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes, I had no clue what type 1 diabetes was. All I knew about diabetes was what you hear through society about being unhealthy, not exercising, not eating well. And I was very confused when I was diagnosed. I didn't understand what was going on. I thought I was pretty much a healthy, hardworking person. I mean, I exercised every single day. I was just very, very confused why I was getting diagnosed with this disease. And these are just 10 things that I really wish I knew at diagnosis. The first thing that is important to know is that it is not your fault. Being diagnosed with type 1 diabetes is nothing that you did wrong. Type 1 diabetes is an autoimmune condition where your body stops producing the B cells that make insulin. And unfortunately, our body just needs insulin to survive. And so that is why we were diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. But because it was an autoimmune condition, the good news is it means you did absolutely nothing wrong. It wasn't because you were unhealthy. It doesn't mean because you ate too much sugar. None of that is the reason that you got type 1 diabetes. A lot of the times someone is diagnosed with type 1 diabetes, it's due to a virus attacking our own body. Anything from the flu, COVID, mono, I mean, I've heard it all. And so we can't control getting sick from a virus. And so, unfortunately, the virus just decided to attack our body, and it had absolutely nothing to do with your actions at all. So, it is absolutely not your fault. You did nothing wrong. The second thing that I wish I knew at diagnosis was that insulin is not a cure for type 1 diabetes. A lot of people that maybe don't know much about type 1 diabetes just assume that insulin is our cure, but it's not. It's just a treatment option. So we can take insulin all day, but that doesn't mean that it's curing our type 1 diabetes. Insulin just keeps us alive. And we are still looking for a cure. We are still looking for ways where we don't have to take insulin anymore and our pancreas just happens to work again. We're still searching. And there's wonderful things out there in the news that shows progress, but you also can't get your hopes up that there's going to be a cure happening anytime soon. So you do still have to learn about type 1 diabetes and you still have to take action and still take insulin and all of that to keep ourselves healthy. But there are positives out there. We're working towards a cure, which is amazing. Will there be one in my lifetime? I don't know. I hope so. Not even really for me. I hope so for just the little kids that are diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. I hope they get access to it first. I don't need it. They need it. Parents that are watching over their kids, they need it. But it's just really important to know that insulin is not a cure. It is just our treatment option. And we really still need a cure. We really need a cure. The third thing that I wish I knew at diagnosis was that your numbers are never going to be perfect. And even the days that they are perfect, that's amazing because most of the time they are not going to be perfect. I know a lot of times we put pressure on ourselves to be in that tight range, between the 70 and 140, because that's what a normal person's blood sugars are at, right? They stay between 70 and 140, and lucky them, they don't have to do anything about it. They can just live their life and their blood sugar stays between that range. Unfortunately, we have to work really hard to get our numbers in that range. And sometimes it's out of our control. Sometimes we wake up in the morning and our blood sugar is at 200 and we have no idea why. Or maybe it's summertime and we walk outside in the heat and our numbers just happen to skyrocket. Like there's a lot of things that we can't control when it comes to type 1 diabetes. So our numbers are not always going to be perfect because unfortunately there is a lot out of our control. However, there are a lot of things in our control too. And so we do still have to try hard. We have to take care of our bodies as best as we can. But it's important to know that, if you happen to hit that 200 number this week, or even if you hit that 250 number, like it's okay. It happens and it's going to happen again. And it's fine. I think it's important just to know that as long as you're trying to get it back to a normal range, you're good to go. You got to take action into fixing that high blood sugar, but then you just got to go back to living your life. Same with a low blood sugar. It happens, right? We take insulin and then we decide to go for a run and our blood sugar drops. It's just as how it happens. And we just have to make sure that we are prepared with sugar. But other than that, it is what it is. Your blood sugar is just never going to be perfect. The fourth thing that I wish I knew at diagnosis is that certain types of food impact your blood sugar differently than other types of food. When you're first diagnosed, they tell you all about the carb counting and everything, and the doctors honestly act like it's very simple, and it's not. Pizza hits you differently than an apple will, and over time, you will learn how to take insulin for these types of foods. However, every food is different. Every single food is different. And you know what's even harder is that there may be days that you eat pizza that will affect you differently than if you eat pizza tomorrow. One day is always different than the next when you live with type 1 diabetes. You can try to learn as much as you want, but it's always going to be different. And carb counting is not just carb counting. That's not how it works with type 1 diabetes. Sometimes you have to pre-bolus 15, 20 minutes. Other times you can take your insulin and start eating immediately. So it just really depends on the food that you're eating. And they don't tell you that when you're first diagnosed. They act like it's a simple carb counting solution and you're good to go. But guess what? That's not how it works. And I really, really wish somebody would have told me that at diagnosis. The fifth thing that I wish I knew at diagnosis was that our technology related to diabetes is our best friend. Your continuous glucose monitor is your best friend. Your insulin pump is your best friend. The technology we have for our diabetes is like the most magical thing on earth. Back in the day when they didn't have any technology, I mean, even when I think about it, I'm like, oh my gosh, like a lot of my friends who were diagnosed when they were little had to literally prick their finger like 40 times a day. And that blows my mind because when I was diagnosed, I was immediately put on a CGM. And so I am so thankful for continuous glucose monitors. I'm not on an insulin pump, but I know that a lot of people love their insulin pump. And so it really is our best friend having diabetes technology. But one thing that's important to note is it's not always 100% accurate. And you do have to take it with a grain of salt. You do still have to use your meter occasionally to test your blood sugar. You might want to have insulin pens or an insulin vial on hand just in case your pump decides to give out. Diabetes technology is so amazing when it works, but unfortunately, sometimes it does give out just like every other piece of technology that we own. And so you do have to be prepared for those moments. And that is another thing that I really wish somebody would have told me at diagnosis. The sixth thing that I wish somebody would have told me is that the mental load is just as hard as the physical load, if not harder. The mental aspect of dealing with diabetes day in and day out is like so frustrating and so exhausting. And the average human doesn't understand what we go through. Even if they try to understand, they will never understand unless they happen to live with type 1 diabetes themselves. And I would never wish that upon anybody because it is just a terrible thing. But it's also frustrating when your family members don't understand the stress that you go through every minute of every single day, even when you're sleeping. It is such a heavy load to carry all the time. And not even to mention that, yes, you have to worry about your blood sugars all the time, but you also have to worry about quote unquote being different than the other person. So right now I have my CGM in my arm and I'm comfortable wearing my CGM in my arm, but there's still moments when I'm walking around and I'm like, wow, that person doesn't have to wear a CGM and that person doesn't have to wear a CGM and I'm different than those people. And even that mental load is stressful. And people are just staring at you and staring at your arm, wondering what that is on your arm. It can get annoying and frustrating and it's a hard thing to grasp, especially if you're a young kid, if you're a young girl or a young boy living with this disease and you're trying to figure out your life and just elementary school, middle school, high school is hard enough as it is, and then you get thrown this diagnosis. I can't even imagine. I'm really happy personally that I didn't have to go through that, but I know there's so many people that do, and the mental load of having to carry that of just worrying about your blood sugar, but then also just being different is so hard and so tough. And I give you all credit for that. And so that's just another thing they don't tell you when you're in the hospital at diagnosis. The seventh thing that I wish I knew at diagnosis was that your needs are going to change over time. One year, you might really want to be on an insulin pump. That's great. The next year, you might want an insulin pump break. You might be like, hey, I'm going to go back to MDI and just be free of pumps. You may even want to go free CGM, like screw that. Let's go back to meter. It's crazy because your needs change every year, every quarter, even every day sometimes. Last year, I had a baby, so my needs definitely changed while I was pregnant. I had to really, really focus on my blood sugars way more than I would now being postpartum. And so those are just things that happen. It's not going to be the same thing every single day with your diabetes. It's going to change all the time. There's going to be things when you really want a certain thing, and then the next week you just decide you don't want to do that. It's going to change. It's going to ebb and flow just based on your lifestyle at that moment in time. The eighth thing that I wish I knew at diagnosis is that you're about to be a part of a community that you don't want to be in, but you're happy there is a community to be in. I have met some of the coolest people that live with type 1 diabetes that I would have never met unless I was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. I have a bunch of friends here in Denver that live with type 1 that I literally would have never met before. And I'm really thankful for that. Plus, these people know exactly what I'm going through. I can say things that they just totally understand, where a lot of other people in this world won't understand, won't care, honestly, and may even be a little annoyed that you're talking about it. So it's really nice to have friends that live with type 1 diabetes because they're going to understand what you're going through and they're okay with you complaining every once in a while about your diabetes because they're going through the same thing every single day. So if you don't have friends that live with type 1, I highly recommend finding one. There's communities all over the internet that you can find. There's in-person communities in your local areas. You just have to find these people and make some friends that live with type 1. The ninth thing that I wish somebody would have told me is that you're going to go to the doctors a lot more. I never went to the doctors before being diagnosed. I mean, I was one of those people that would go once a year for a checkup. And now I go quite a lot for a lot of different issues I feel like I have. And I see my doctor quite a bit. Even my endocrinologist, I think I still see her at least once a quarter. And I love her. She's great. So I don't mind seeing her. But you do happen to go to the doctors quite a bit more. And it's just something you got to do because now we live with a very serious autoimmune condition and you got to get checked. You got to make sure your A1C is good. You got to make sure all your other blood work is good. It's just something that we have to do, of living with type 1. It's just what we have to do. And I think you should take advantage of being close to people who know their stuff, like endocrinologists, and being able to get access to blood work. I mean, that's amazing. So you got to take advantage of these doctor's appointments. And the last thing, the number 10 thing that I really wish somebody would have told me at diagnosis is that you're going to be okay. You're going to be just fine. You can live a normal life with type 1 diabetes. Yes, it stinks a lot of the times. A lot of the times. There's going to be days that you just don't want to have this disease anymore. There's going to be moments when you're like very unhappy and just pissed off at the world. But the good news is you can live a completely normal life with type 1 diabetes. And thanks to technology and thanks to just all the access that we have for healthcare, like we can live a completely normal life with type 1 diabetes. You can still go play sports. You can hike mountains. You can do anything you want to do. You can be doctors. You can be pilots. You can be anything that you want to be. You can still live a normal life with type 1 diabetes. And that is the best news ever. When you hear your diagnosis, it can be really, really scary. And you're like, oh my God, my life is over. But guess what? It is not over. It's just starting. You can still live a completely normal life with type 1 diabetes, and you should live a completely normal life with type 1 diabetes. And better yet, you may actually do things that you would have never done before unless you live with type 1 diabetes. For example, back in 2022, I ran the New York City Marathon to prove to the world that me living with type 1 can still run a marathon and be okay. And I did it. I did it. And I guess what, guys? I would have never done that before diagnosis. I would have never ran a marathon. So you may actually do more than you think you would have ever done before diagnosis. You can still live a normal life with type 1 diabetes. Thank you so much for being here today. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, leave a comment, let me know when you were diagnosed, and I will see you all next week. Bye.